Hi guys, and welcome to this week's vlog. It's a real chilled one. Just fresh back off my original 2-week trip to Glencoe and then up to Assynt for another week or so, closer to 10 days if I'm honest. On the way back home we decided to stop off for another night, and of all the places to pick we chose Glencoe again. Now I wasn't going to bring you along on this one. This was just going to be a chilled out session for myself and Gaz, stay overnight. We decided to just drive down Glencoe as well, just because there's some nice places down there to stop. So we travelled down, stopped, had our tea, went to bed, woke up this morning and the conditions were just delightful. We honestly thought we'd wake up, have our breakfast and say ta-ra to each other, but on the contrary, just delightful. So while we're here, I'm just going to grab some pano shots with the reflections in the lakes or the lochs or these big puddles, whatever they are. What's that, Gaz?
Lochen.
Lochen.
A lochen.
A lochen. Middle of the day, and it is the middle of the day as well, literally 25 to 12. And the last thing you'd expect right now is to have the conditions that we've got for shooting. It's just delightful. So I'm just going to grab a few shots from a few nice areas that I know, and going to do some pano sweeps and some ordinary shots, but they're so nice to not come here and not grab them. So I'll give you a bit of a refresher if you need a refresher, and I'll just talk you through my setup. It's as simple as that. That's going to be this week's vlog. Gaz has a rule that he lives by. It's called the Sunny F11. He said you should vlog that because that makes a lot of sense. To me it doesn't make a lot of sense at all, but I'll get Gaz to explain his theory of the Sunny F11 rule, and you could tell me down below if that makes sense to you or not, or maybe you've got your own little rules.
No, you do it. You take credit for it.
No, I'm not taking credit for that. I'm not taking credit for that because I don't understand it.
It's easy.
Go on,
it's easy. It's easy. I'm not as tall as you. Not as tall. Okay.
Go on, right, you're on.
So, clear skies, sunny skies, sunny F11 rule. Set your aperture to F11 and your shutter speed will match your ISO as a starting point. So 100 ISO, 100 for a second, 400 ISO, 400 for a second, and it should come out right. As a starting point. What could be harder?
So you're not using your light meter, and you're not using your histogram.
Test it out. Put it to the test. Go on, put it to the test.
Well, you're not going to be a million miles off today, are you? But
put it to the test.
But right, okay. ISO 100, straight to F11, and I'm going to go to 100th of a second. Right.
Check out your exposure.
Right, let's check out my exposure. Perfect.
There you go.
Check my... I'm not gonna...
We're changing to 400s. Go on.
No, well, obviously we will. If 100 works, if 400 will work.
There you go. Kiss.
Don't do that.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Don't do that. Just use your histogram and use your light meter. Anyway, having said that though, pretty much on a day like today, you're going to shoot at F11 and you're going to shoot ISO 100, which is exactly what I would have set my camera at anyway. But it just so happens he got really lucky at around about, I'm going to push that a bit more without any filters on there, 60th of a second. So 100th of a second is, like Gaz says, is there or thereabouts. But on a serious note, if you've never shot in manual before, just try that. Switch your camera to manual on a lovely day like today. Set your ISO to 100 because your ISO will control the sensitivity of your sensor, but ISO 100 will keep the image nice and clean. F11 your aperture controls your depth of field. F11 will give you everything pretty much sharp from tippy toes to as far as the eye can see, if you focus roughly a third of the way into the image. And once you've got your aperture set at F11 and your ISO set to 100, just activate your light meter by depressing your fire button halfway down, and then slow or increase your shutter speed until your light meter goes in the middle, or until you get your histogram exactly where you want it. It's so much easier to do that than it is to dither around using your aperture control and your shutter speed priority. So your aperture priority and shutter speed priority. My advice is, you know, some people use them. If you use them, by the way, and you're happy using them and you're comfortable using them, then carry on using them. But if you want, in my honest opinion, if you want to take full control of your camera, shoot in manual. Anyway, there you go. Right, let's get that composition right. Need my glasses for this. Said it was going to be a chilled out one today. Love that. Love that. Okay, I'm just going to make sure I'm nice and level. I'm going to focus a third of the way into the frame there, right on those reeds there. And now I'm going to switch my focus onto manual, because it's something I do quite often. Because every time now I press my button to take the image, then my camera is no longer trying to hunt for something to focus on. Take, it's going to click 1, 2. That is the picture without any filters on whatsoever. Take a look at that.
I won't say.
No, don't. I'm still laughing about his top tip. I bet loads of people comment, you know, saying, yeah, that's exactly what I do, that's exactly what I do.
What a brilliant bloke.
The thing is, yeah, I don't care what tip you work by. If it works, it works. That'll do me. Right, okay. I've got a 0.9 soft grad. Not really sure I need it. The floor's a little bit darker, so that's why we drop in soft grad filters, just to bring the light down in the sky just a little bit. So let's pop him on live view. Let's take a look. I always use soft grads. I never use anything else but soft grads. Drop that down. There you go. Now that's quite nice. Now I can also just increase the lighting ever so slightly by slowing the shutter speed down. Just recheck. Pop up the histogram. Some people like to push the histogram to the right. I don't. I just like the histogram to sit where I feel all the detail is maintained, but again, that's entirely up to you. The thought process or the theory, which is perfectly right, if you push your histogram to the right, then you can claw more detail and information out of the darker areas within your image. And as long as you don't go too far to the right, that there's clipping. You don't want clipping. Clipping is very, very bad. Okay, so I haven't moved my camera. My focus is already preset. My lens is on manual focus, so therefore I can just press the button 1, 2 and click. That is, I hate to say it, just delightful. Just delightful. With and without that 0.9 soft grad filter. From this very I don't like these chilled out videos. Gaz was just trying to sneak under in case you didn't see him. Right, got that shot. Happy with that shot. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pop him in portrait orientation, and I'm going to zoom in and just isolate maybe just one of the mountains. Let's have a quick look. Let me see how that looks. Yeah, that's really nice. So my camera settings are exactly the same, except I've zoomed in. I've got a 24-105mm lens on there. I'm still looking at my composition. It's not the buccal. Actually, I think it is the buccal, which is the main mountain I'm trying to capture. I'm moving that slightly to the left of frame. There. Again, I'm going to hit my info button. It might be different on your camera, but if I hit my info button, I think 3 or 4 times, on live view it just goes through until eventually it brings up the level. I find it really important. Every time I'm really anal about getting my level right. Okay, so I'm still on F11. Just slight angle, so just tilt my 0.9 soft grad there ever so slightly, slow the shutter speed down, histogram up, and there you go. That's looking very nice indeed. I've lost a bit of light now because I'm at a 20th of a second, but there isn't a ripple in that water, and that is going to look delightful. So let's get my focus on my lens back onto autofocus. Again, I'm just going to focus roughly a third of the way into the frame. And 1, 2. That's just stunning. Before I leave, I think I'm going to do a 6, 7, 8 or 9 shot pano. Because why wouldn't you? Right, let's do a pano. Oh, battery's flashing. Maybe it's a little bit too chilled this week. I'll just change my battery. Right, let's do a pano. So, just as a reminder, in case you didn't know, if you have a spirit level on your tripod, get that right from the get-go. It's really important to do as much pre-work as you can, and if you've got a spirit level on the camera, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about one specific to the tripod. So the bubble's right in the middle. Now let's bring up my level on the back of the camera, get that nice and level. There you go, there. Portrait orientation, and now as I swing my camera from left to right, it'll stay level all the way, so I'll get as much height as I possibly can achieve in this image. Just doing some normal checks, make sure my soft grad is where it needs to be, my starting point and my finish point. Sometimes that can get quite confusing, but I would always suggest, in your own mindset, try and find a point to the left and a point to the right where you need to start and finish. But then maybe just go slightly wider outside of it. You don't have to use every shot. So if you took 9 shots, then you'll end up with a really thin letterbox orientation. But if you only post-processed 5 or 6 of them, then of course you'd end up with more or less like a 3x2 or a 16x9 orientation. My settings, I don't need to change my settings. I will just have a quick double check of that. That's perfectly fine. So I'm still at F11, ISO 100, and I'm now at a 30th of a second. I've got my point on the left and my point on the right, so my start and my finish point. And let's have a quick look. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to focus a third of the way into that image, Let's have a look. Focus on the reeds there. Focus and pop that onto manual. So camera's on manual, the exposure won't change at all, and my focus won't change, and every time I try, or every time I depress my button, it won't now try and hunt and look for something to focus on. So let's go take that picture, 1, 2, and it takes the picture back to live view, and let's just a slight twist on it. I usually overlap by a third. 1, 2. I've got a click lock system, so the tripod head I'm currently using, I can just maneuver my camera head so it stays nice and level, and at the moment I'm going from left to right, and I've just calculated that I can just twist it once, twice, and take the picture, and once, twice, take the picture. I can do it quite quick as well. Now every time I do this, and I made a tutorial pretty much saying exactly what I said now on how to take a pano, and so many people came back to me and said, no, you're teaching it wrong because you're not using a nodal slider. There's a nodal point, and you need to explain to people about the nodal slider and the nodal point and parallax and all the rest of it. Well, I'm photographing something that's got to be 4 or 5 miles away, and it makes not a jot of difference. I can stand here and hand hold my camera and basically turn my body from left to right like a lighthouse. Now the movement of the camera will be this big, but that won't have any or won't make a jot of difference on something you're photographing 4 or 5 miles away. So don't get carried away with that, and don't start buying equipment that you don't need to buy. You do need a nodal slider, you do need to think about your parallax only if you're photographing something that's very close to the camera. Okay, so if you do use one because you do something specific in your photography, well then perfectly fine. I'm not saying don't buy one, but what I'm saying is as a landscape photographer you do not need it. Right, okay, so I like that. I'm going to retake that shot one more time from right to left, and all I've done now is I've just raised it ever so slightly. 1, 2, there, click, back to live view, 1, 2, take, back to live view, 1, 2, and there you go, and so on. It's as simple as that.